All right, so I'm up next, and I will start with at the request of Jared. I will start with Philharm Magic
Thank you.
in Magic Kingdom because this is the one time you're gonna catch me doing a Florida attraction. Um, because I
Oh,
actually
come
like this a
on.
lot. I know it's in California. It's with Philharm Magic in California. I know. I like it better in Florida. I do. Because the one in California, I'll explain later. All right, so we're gonna start with just a little history, and I'm not even gonna lie to you and say it'll be brief because it's not. Um, so it all began when Walt Disney passed away just before Walt Disney World's completion. Imagineers felt an immense need to honor Walt's memory in Disney World, not by sticking to what they've done before and creating new stories based in Disney parks. They actually wanted to honor him by creating an attraction based on Walt's work in film and movies. Um, so to do that, they created a show with this Mickey Mouse as the centerpiece of it. And it was using the same technology as Tiki Room and Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln in Disneyland. And so they created this little Mickey Mouse animatronic, which is one of the most advanced that they had created thus far, which is not saying much for the time period. I will say that. So where am I at my notes? Okay, so the premise was around uh, the the idea of the cartoon with the conductor Mickey, the orchestra
Hmm.
conductor. Um, and so it would have Mickey and various Disney classic songs featuring 81 animatronics altogether. They advertised 86, but it's actually 81.
Wow.
Yeah. And they named it the Mickey Mouse Review. And it was one of the most heavily promoted attractions for Magic Kingdom, even releasing a children's book detailing the attraction's backstory entitled Mickey Needs New Friends.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm not
Oh,
kidding.
wow.
I'm not kidding. And it was the premise of the book. It's kind of like it's the whole backstory of the ride to get kids ready to go see this attraction. It was about Mickey interacting with other Disney Parks characters and Disney IP characters, being like, "Hey, I'm having a concert. Do you want to be in it?" And they're all like, "No, I'm busy." It was like Alice in Wonderland. Snow White said no. Cinderella said no. Like the Splash Mountain characters, they said no. And so then he's like walking away all sad, like, "Oh, nobody wants to hang out with me." And he walks into this theater and sees all of his friends standing there being like, "Just kidding. We gotcha. Let's play music." And that is the backstory, the whole backstory of the ride. So the attraction has an 8-minute pre-show diving into Disney's connection to music before escorting guests into the theater. It is also decorated with Mickey Mouse statues all along the sides of different like Mickey Mouse cartoons. So the orchestra conductor, Steamboat Willie, yeah, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm going to start showing the pictures of Mickey Mouse's review. Ta-da! For those of you who are on YouTube, these are the pictures of the review. For the podcast listeners, we are looking at a picture of the original attraction with Mickey Mouse conductor holding his little, he's in like his cute little tuxedo, and he's got his stick, and the classic Disney characters like Minnie, Daisy, Huey, Dewey, Louie, Scrooge, all of them together doing the opening number featuring the Mickey Mouse Club theme. As we move forward, we go into the Snow White portion of the show, which has a Snow White and animals animatronics. She sings "I'm Wishing," and then it transitions into the seven dwarves in their cottage singing "Silly Song." As we go into the next scene, the other half, so it's like a big old stage, and they light up different portions of the stage to reveal each of these scenes.
That's really cool.
Snow
It is
White
really
is
cool.
on the left side, does that, and then on the right side, Alice in Wonderland pops up with the flowers, and they sing "Golden Afternoon." And then in the center, you get Cinderella in her maid outfit with the fairy godmother singing "Bippity Boppity Boo." Fun fact: she does not transform into her new dress until the end of the show. So then you see her with the prince at the end of that. And then finally, they had the three caballeros show up.
Oh, wow.
And,
Underrated.
Our
Okay.
favorite.
and perform. And it was underrated at the time, absolutely. But this is kind of what catapulted it, I think, in my opinion, because it was considered the liveliest part of the show. They
Oh,
were
wow.
kind of like guests were sitting there like, "Oh, well, this quiet rendition of these songs, and now we're kind of bored. And then these guys showed up. The way that they staged it was quite spectacular, really. They had the 3 animatronics performing. They'd shut the lights out on them, and then the lights would go on at the far end of the theater, and it would be a Donald animatronic over there singing, and then they would shut that off, and then over there it'd be Jose over there singing. So they had multiple duplicates of these animatronics that created the effect of the characters bouncing around the stage to kind of give it a more lively feel. It was definitely the highlight and the reason why some people went to go see this show.
Oh, cool.
And fun fact, these animatronics will be recycled.
I wonder
right.
where.
I wonder where, right? And then so the finale, it starts off with the Splash Mountain characters singing a rendition of Zippity Doo Dah, and then every single character from the show comes back together to sing the finale Zippity Doo Dah together, with Mickey conducting the orchestra. Ta-da! End of show. Hold on. End of show. So that is what happens with that. It ran for a good little while, but what ended up happening was that there was more than one musical review of singing animatronics in Florida. Mickey Mouse's review did not stand a chance against the Country Bear Jamboree.
Oh,
And
yeah, there we go.
Sorry, Jerry.
Gross.
At the end of the day, guests were more inclined to go see Country Bear Jamboree, which is disappointing because the whole point of the review was to honor Walt, and it did nothing. It eventually didn't work out. So they had this ride that went from an E ticket to a D ticket very quickly, and they were thinking about closing it down. And then Tokyo calls up and says, "Hey, we want to build that exact same attraction here in Tokyo. We love it." And Florida was like, "Well, we're gonna get rid of it. Do you want it?" And so they just picked it up and put it in Tokyo. And so now there's an empty Fantasyland theater in Magic Kingdom with nothing in it. They had originally put different kinds of cartoons in there for a while. Vintage cartoons existed in there. They had some like fantastical, like Magic Journey kind of things happening in there. But eventually, what really changed the game was The Lion King came out.
Ooh.
With The Lion King's release in theaters, it blew up so big.
We love Hamlet.
Yes. Hamlet with lions really did it for them. And in this photo, if you're watching YouTube, you can see the candy castle in the corner. If this gives you an idea
Oh
of
my
what
God.
era this is. Lion King comes out, and finally Imagineers are like, aha, inspiration. Let's go for it. So they're finally doing this a show to go in there, and it has these amazing puppets. It has it's like a Sesame Street style kind of review with the puppets, and they retell the story of the Lion King. Rafiki is in the sculpted costume that he's in today in the parks. But there's like a 7-foot tall Mufasa and an 18-foot tall Pride Rock featured in this show.
Wow.
And
I want this back.
They do the whole enchilada. They did like Mufasa's death, the stampede, be prepared, all of it. All of it. The lights were amazing. The puppets were amazing. And it was a great show. So why don't we have it here today? Well, guess what happened?
Did it scar the kids?
A little thing called Animal Kingdom opened up.
Yep.
And a little show called Festival of the Lion King booted out Legend of the Lion King in Fantasyland real fast.
I will stand that Festival of the Lion King is hands down the best show in Disney World.
For real.
In Disney World, I totally agree. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Festival of the Lion King pops in, and once again, that little Fantasyland theater has been upstaged. So no one's going to Legend anymore, so they shut the show down completely. That is the end of my picture slideshow portion. So we're moving on to now we have an empty theater. Once again, what are we going to do? Imagineers reverted back to the Mickey Mouse's review. It's doing really well in Tokyo. Hey, maybe let's give it another chance. Except now that we're in the late 90s, the animatronic show really isn't hitting like it did in the 70s and 80s. So Imagineers looked at what's popping right now. What's going on right now? Muppet Vision 3D. It's Tough to Be a Bug. Captain EO. All doing really,
Oh,
really well.
I miss Captain EO.
Captain EO was so good. I know Sky doesn't like it, but it was so good. So let me swallow my popcorn. So you have this format of the 3D 4D immersive experience, right? And they decide to take that and kind of mush that with the musical review and make this screen show instead of this animatronic stage show. And that was kind of the way that they wanted to introduce this concept for a new generation. So it was primarily based in the Renaissance era because that's what was popping at the time. So they started with who wrote it was one of the creatives behind Beauty and the Beast actually wrote the script for it. And
Okay.
That's cool.
yeah, it wrote the script for it, and the inspiration for it was actually the fact that the Three Caballeros did so darn well when the review was up. That was the highlight of it. So they wanted to kind of tie it in a little bit and make Donald the center instead of Mickey, and have Donald interact with all these characters in a very chaotic, energetic way. It took 3 years to complete Philharm Magic, but it was ready by 2003, and boy, did it do well. It did so well that Tokyo saw it and went, oh shoot, never mind. We don't want our review anymore. We want yours. So from there, the Three Caballeros animatronics in Tokyo went to Mexico to be in the Grand Fiesta Tour, and Philharm Magic went into Fantasyland in Tokyo. Philharm Magic is one of the only attractions that is the same exact thing in every single park all over the world except for Shanghai. Shanghai doesn't have it
Okay.
at all, but it is the same exact thing all over the world, which is really kind of cool. Because we talk about like when you go around the world, they change things a little bit.
Mhm.
Philharm Magic is the exact same everywhere. So then during the COVID-19 shutdown, a necessary update was made to the show to make the animation clearer and more current. And then they added a brand new bit featuring Coco of Pixar. So that is the history of the ride, as recent as like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the story of the ride, for those of you who are unfamiliar or live under a rock, guests enter a queue filled with posters from classic Disney films and other musical performances. When they enter the lobby, Minnie Mouse and Goofy are heard preparing guests for a show, not unlike the original review, where Mickey conducts a magical orchestra playing your favorite Disney songs. Upon entering the theater, Minnie Mouse announces the start of the show, except Donald is missing with all the instruments. Donald, asleep on the stage, is awoken by Mickey, who tells him, just set up the orchestra and don't touch my hat. Of course, in his curiosity, Donald disobeys and plays with the hat. It sends him into orbit and he's sucked into darkness. The structure of the theater is removed in the dark to reveal a larger screen, and Lumiere sets the stage for Be Our Guest as the audience is right in the middle of the action with the food sense and everything kind of immersing a little bit further. At the end of the scene, Donald falls into the ground where the walking brooms from Fantasia clean up after his mess. When dumping a bucket of water on him, guests are splashed with water and dive into Ariel's collection cave. The screens expand fully to deeper immerse the crowd. So by then they have fully gone like you're just surrounded by it at that point.
Yeah.
But no 360. We've learned from China.
No.
We're not doing that.
No 360.
No, we're not doing that. Ariel sings Part of Your World while Donald struggles to find his hat. When the scene ends, the camera pans up to the sunlight at the top of the cave, and it becomes the sun in The Lion King. As Simba sings, I just can't wait to be king, call back to Legend of the Lion King there, featuring Donald landing in the middle of the artwork on screen. The scene fades into the land of the dead with Miguel and Hector on the moving trolley traveling to La Plaza de la Cruz performing Un Poco Loco. Sky can attest, I was in tears. I was actually crying.
Yep.
It was so beautiful.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'm going to bring this up later about how I felt about that. Panning up to the night sky after that performance, Donald flies with Peter Pan and Tinkerbell over London as You Can Fly plays, which made Sky cry. From the clouds, Aladdin and Jasmine enter, singing A Whole New World. Jasmine kindly gives the hat back to Donald, which restores the original theater. Mickey takes back his hat before ending with the Mickey Mouse Club theme, played by the orchestra. Donald is launched out of a horn into the back of the theater, and a puppet of his backside is seen having crashed into the wall before he falls completely through the hole as guests are exiting the ride. That's all I have for Philharm Magic. The only difference in California is that California's screens are not cohesively wraparound like that. They're cut up. Like there are columns of like architecture stabbed in the middle of these screens. So it does hurt the immersion effect a little more. And that's the only reason why I do not like California's in comparison to Florida.
That makes
Because
sense.
Florida's
Okay.
is one big clean screen. But California's just doesn't. And why I like that clean screen effect is because when you're like on the trolley in the Land of the Dead, you're like, I feel like I'm flying with them.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to look at but that. And so like the camera pans down and the animation is like soaring into London and I'm like, oh, I'm flying with them, right? Like that's what makes that attraction so cool to me. So yes, that is Philharm Magic. I love it a lot.
As much as like I've seen the show, I've never watched it in Disneyland.
Mm-hmm. We should go see
Really?
it just so you can understand.
I feel like I should, but like hearing about it makes me not want to.
It's
Oh
it's a
my
little
God.
weird. It's a little weird.
So-
but it's still cute, but it's not as cute as the Florida one for sure.
No, but like for sure, I love Philharm Magic in general, but I don't know if like I feel like it's perfect the way it is for Florida. It's like I don't want to like take that away from myself and then
Yeah.
watch it in California and be like, oh,
The thing
So
for me-
disappointed.
Yeah,
I know.
The thing for me is that Philharm Magic's theater in Florida was built like the interior was redesigned specifically for Philharm Magic.
Right.
Yeah.
As in California, that's not the case. It feels like a placeholder in California.
I love some of those posters too because they're not like real things, but
Yeah.
there's like joke ones. Like there's a few genie ones that I can
Hades.
remember.
I love the
Yeah.
Hades one with
Hades
the
is hilarious, yeah.
the skeleton guitar.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right.
cute.
On to Soarin' over California.
Mr. Giffard.
Oh boy. So interestingly enough, Soarin' has 4 different rides. So there's 4 different versions of Soarin' around the world. So we had Soarin' over California. Obviously, in now we have Soarin' over the world, but there's 2 other Soarin' variations that aren't really discussed and do like a lot of things with like magic and stuff like that, especially with the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, which is super cool. So I'll get into that as well. So Soarin' over California opened February 8th of 2001 and ran to June 15th of 2016. So it was there for a pretty good amount of time, almost 20 years. You know, it's hard for me because I do love the original Soarin' so much that when I found out that it was going away, I was really devastated. And now looking at it, we've almost had Soarin' over the world for almost 7 years.
I'm
Wow.
personally on the page that they should have kept Soarin' over California in DCA
Yeah, I agree.
I
'Cause-
agree.
because Soarin' over the world fits Epcot a lot better than Soarin' over California.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. So Soarin' was first conceptualized in 1996 as Ultra Flight. It was to feature an Omnimax screen with an inverted track allowing guests to fly over California's landmarks. The attraction would have 3 load levels and the system would operate on a horizontal cable. This plan was abandoned, however, when it was determined that the construction and labor costs for that design would be prohibited. So literally the design that they were trying to create was so dangerous that they weren't allowed to do it.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it was
That's
so
crazy.
expensive that the most money, like the more money they were putting into it, the less they could really use with that attraction.
Mhm.
So it would have been a whole completely different ride if they still went with that original idea.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
Right? Isn't that weird? You would just think of like a hang glider and just like sitting there was like, you know, something so, you know, easy to do. But at the time, it was one of the most dangerous attractions to create in all the Disney World theme parks, aside from like Expedition Everest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seemed like Soarin' would never actually become a reality until Imagineer Mark Sumner developed a different idea for the ride vehicles, using an erector set and a string to create the working model. This design would allow Disney to efficiently load guests on one level instead of three, cutting construction and labor costs down greatly. In the end, the cost of the total ride was $125 million.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Thinking about this was the attraction in the 90s, in the 80s. It totaled more than half of the theme park.
Wow.
Just with that one
Ridiculous.
attraction. Yeah, it's insane.
Well, no
It's
wonder
too
Westcott
much.
got abandoned.
It's
Yeah.
too much.
So each ride vehicle consisted of 3 rows of seats under a wing-like canopy and had a capacity of 87 guests per ride vehicle. The canopy descended slightly and lifts the chairs forward and into the air, and guest feet dangle freely. Sorry, I cannot read my own writing.
Guest feet dangly.
The vehicle is lifted forward so that guests can look into a larger movie screen. The screens were shot with an IMAX HD frame rate, which is 48 frames per second, which is twice the conventional output for regular films. So literally as much as now Infinity War and Endgame, that was what it was like for that time period. So as clean and shot as that was for now was what Soarin' was supposed to be. The ride structure contains about 1 million pounds of steel and 37 tons lifted during each ride cycle, which is insane. To enhance the illusion of flight, subtle vertical movements of the seats and synchronized to the film, sensations of horizontal motion are created using a combination of vertical carriage movement and turning the image on the screen. In addition, scents complementing the various scenes are interjected into the airstreams blowing on the riders. So for California, it is located at Condor Flats, later turned to Grizzly Airfield, surrounding Grizzly Peak and Grizzly Rapids. So while waiting in line, guests pass the Wings of Fame, a homage to significant aircraft in the history of aviation in California. Some of these include the P-51 Mustang, the SR-71 Blackbird, and Bell X-1. There is also a section dedicated to individuals such as John Montgomery, Amelia Earhart, Jimmy Doolittle, Charles Lindbergh, and the Wright brothers. Before entering the theater, guests are placed into one of 3 pre-show areas called Alpha Gate, Bravo Gate, and Charlie Gate. Just before boarding, guests watch a pre-boarding video hosted by the chief flight attendant, Patrick, portrayed by Patrick Warburton. Our favorite man, the myth, the legend. I love him so much.
We love you, Patrick.
We love him.
Honestly, my favorite seat is Alpha Bravo, which is the top middle row. And it's completely clear, and it's like a perfect view of the entire screen.
Yeah.
I really don't like the way that Soarin' kind of does it, where like it kind of takes you out of the immersion with the people's feet dangling in front of you.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's pretty great.
I like it.
The original film lasted 4 minutes and 51 seconds, taking guests on a simulated hang glide tour of California. Scents of citrus, pine, sagebrush, and ozone mist fill the air as the ride vehicles move gently to simulate the sensations of flight. In addition to the state's various landscapes, it also highlights its diverse recreation, including snow skiing, river rafting, kayaking, golf, horseback riding, and hot air ballooning. And of course, hang gliding in its premier locations. So they go past the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, the Redwood Creek, which is right outside of the Disney park, Montgomery Bay Sanctuary, Lake Tahoe, Yosemite Falls, and Half Dome and Yosemite National Park, the PGA West Palmer Course in Palm Springs, Valencia, Orange Groves, and Ventura County, the Desert State National Park, Naval Air Base Station in San Diego, California, Malibu Beach, downtown LA, and finally the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim. The original Soarin' over California ride film at both Disneyland California Adventure and Epcot has an orchestral score by Jerry Goldsmith, who wrote the music for Gremlins, Alien, which is also in the Great Movie Ride, and who is said to have come down from the first ride in tears. In addition to finding it visually beautiful and magical, he said that the father was a pilot who loved all things California. I'd do anything to be part of that project, he said. I'd even score the film for free. So heading over to my personal, out of all these, I find that I'm loving Soarin' over the World a lot more than I did. So heading over to Soarin' Over the World in Epcot, it opened June 17th, 2016. So it's currently 6 years old, which is really hard for me to. Yeah, what's up?
Pause. Rewind. What did you just say?
Yeah, like I'm finding myself going on the attraction a lot more than I did. And I actually really love Soarin' Over the World.
Are you okay?
Okay, listen. I was trying to get him to have a romantic experience with me on Soarin' Over the World, and all he could do was hate it. And now he likes it.
I still think Soarin' Over California is like better, but I do love Soarin' Over the World.
If I had just waited for you to like it.
It's kind of like how I was with Small World.
I know, but we were dating when you started liking Small World at that point.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago though, because like for a long time, it was like I enjoyed Soarin' Over the World, but I didn't want to do it.
Phone case.
It's the Leaning Tower. Yep.
Okay.
But yeah. No, it's grown on me a lot. And I do have a very high opinion for it now. And I do love it. But similar to Disneyland, it's time located in the Land Pavilion next to Living with the Lamb, themed to the inside of an airport. So this one is, it's literally exactly the same, only the locations are different. So this one, you pass the Matterhorn in Switzerland. You go over the icebergs and glaciers in Greenland. You pass Sydney, Australia, overlooking the Opera House and Sydney Harbor. You pass a German castle. I'm not exactly sure how to say the name. I tried to ask Armida how to say it, and it was really complicated. So I'm just not even going to. Yeah. You pass through the Kilimanjaro National Park in Tanzania.
Yeah.
The Great Wall of China and the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Passing through the Taj Mahal in India, Monument Valley in Utah with the hot air balloons. And finally, this is my favorite scent of the whole ride, the Lau Islands in Fiji with a group of kayakers. I don't know how to say that name.
Oh, wait. Spell it again for me.
Iguaza. You said it was part of Indiana Jones.
It was. Hold on, let me look at it.
Anyway.
Once I looked at the word, I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
The Eiffel Tower and finally Spaceship Earth.
Oh, Iguazu.
Oh, because that just rolls off the tongue.
Iguazu.
Yeah, okay.
It does better than what you were saying.
Iguana Falls. How about that? We're going to go with Iguana Falls.
Iguazu.
Iguana.
No, say iguana, but with a U. Iguazu.
Iguana with a U. Okay. So moving on to Tokyo Disney Sea. So this is Soarin' Over the Horizon. Actually, no, this is Shanghai.
Sometimes.
What? What's wrong with Iguana Falls?
You have issues. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thing.
So this opened in Adventure Isle in 2016. So on Adventure Isle, the Arubi tribe created a temple and a celestial observatory erected in honor of the Kiwatar, which is the protector in the celestial realm called the Mayu. So the temple is home to the shaman. I know, right? It's home to the shaman who used the temple to explore flight. When the League of Adventurers opened the Adventure Isle up to the visitors, the temple opened for any visiting guests to experience flight with the help of the Kiwatar. So guests enter the queue winding outside of the temple, and they enter the temple where the ceiling is open, overlooking a starry night sky. I literally love this so much. So inside, it literally looks like you're looking at the Northern Lights with the way it's like created. So it looks super, super pretty. So they are split into two different parties where they wait in a small room. A window shows different locations that they'll be visiting on the trip. And before the pre-show opens, an eagle transformed into the Arubi shaman who welcomes you into the Celestial Observatory. She talks about the temple and the Kiwatar before giving you safety instructions. When she leaves, she transforms into a frog by mistake before turning herself into a hummingbird and flying away. That is when you board the hang gliders. And right before you take off, you actually see the hummingbird on the screen guiding you into the different locations. So it's kind of like leading you through the ride with that like mythic beast, which is pretty cool.
That's cute.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But instead of, how we have it where we end with our like signature Disney park, they have it so they end with the Great Wall of China, with a bunch of the lanterns like going up at night and a bunch of fireworks like going over the Great Wall of China.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, it's really cool. So there they have their own society of explorers and adventurers called the League of Adventurers. It's basically like an off-brand version of Sea. So it was established in the 1920s, and it is a globe-trotting organization dedicated to scientific and archaeological studies and expeditions. So in 1930, this actually ties into Armida's coming up, which is really important. So they actually introduced the fixed rope system, which is an installation to make traversing the mountain safer and easier. During this time, they would also establish the system in the Himalayas, finding out the truth about the Yeti during Expedition Everest. And in 1931, an archaeological team from the League and Indiana Jones discovered the Temple of the Crystal Skull in the Lost River Delta. However, they ran into trouble with the temple's booby traps and had to be bailed out by Dr. Jones. So this also ties into Indiana Jones, the Temple of the Forbidden, or Jesus Christ, Temple of the Forbidden Eye, and their thing.
Yes and no. I will explain in case you weren't curious, or in case you didn't know or live under a rock. Once again, I'm doing Indiana Jones at some point today. So surprise. Okay, go ahead.
And in 1932, shortly after establishing a submersible program with the Submarine Odyssey, they would embark on an expedition to Atlantis. So Atlantis is also part of Sea as well. So they are connected like that. I'm going to stop it real quick.